Utah's sports leader. This is KZNS AM Salt Lake City. KZNS FM Colvin. 97.5 1280 The Zone. And the Zone Sports Network.
And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 1280 The Zone. Powered by KSLSports.com.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 and 1280 The Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Thank you very much for making us a part of your, what day is it, Ben? Thursday?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
I went to bed, it was today. I woke up, it was still today. I don't remember when last night ended. But I'm here. You're here, and we're happy to be here.
And you had your kids this morning?
Oh, yeah. I got up, got them to school. My daughter didn't come sleep in my bed, which she usually does, so I had a little bit of freedom to
look at you.
Lay out. Starfish it last night? What do they call it?
Everything's coming up, Ben.
Ah, it's perfect. I did tell Megan I bought a bad bag of coffee last night, so I got to go dump that after work and find something new. You ever do that?
Bad bag of coffee?
So I told you I'm in my new plunger system.
Yeah.
And I've been using the Keurig. So like the cups, I found the brand I liked and I just stuck with it for 5 years or whatever. And now I'm back to my plunger system and I'm having to go buy beans again at the store. And I haven't bought beans in a really long time. And I don't know what flavor profile necessarily I'm looking for. So I bought a bad bag of beans. I don't like the flavor. It's too acidic. There's too much. It's like too floury. And there's nothing worse. So I brewed my coffee. I had my cereal. I didn't take a sip of my coffee apparently for like 15 minutes. And then I had my first sip and I thought, what did I just make? Because this is awful. So I have a huge, terrible coffee. But I got no other choice. I'm going to drink it. After work, I'm going to go toss it.
Just taking a sip of mine here. You know, the nice...
That's fresh.
The nice thing. You know what? We were just having a conversation with PK off the air about consistency. And I'll tell you one of the best qualities about Folgers, Ben.
It's funny you go with Folgers. That's not a knock on you at all. Like, it's like, you know, Folgers has been around forever. Like, Folgers is the number one coffee company on earth for a reason. It delivers what it delivers very consistently.
And it's toppled regimes, and it's a big evil monster of a company probably. But you know what?
You know what? They deliver Jake a good cup of coffee.
Consistent. I wouldn't even call it good. Don't care. You know what it is? Coffee. You know what it is? Consistent. You know where they sell it? Costco.
Yeah. No, I got to go find a bean, though. And I did. I had this guilty thing that I'm sure a lot of guys...
the silly grinding and all that stuff?
No, I bought it ground.
All that?
I do have a grinder, so if I want to do that, I can, but I did buy this ground, which might have been the problem.
Got a grinder sitting in the cupboard collecting dust because I'm not going to fire up a power tool first thing in the morning.
But I did have this feeling of, oh, man, I don't like this coffee. I'm going to throw it out. It just so happened the bag was like $3.99 yesterday. I told Megan I was in a hurry, and I just grabbed a bag, and it happened to be a $3.99 one. And I'm going to feel guilty throwing away all these beans, even though I hate the flavor of it. But I would so willingly throw away a bad cup of coffee that I purchased for $5 if it tasted bad, which is more. But I feel bad that I'm throwing away these beans that are actually less than what a stupid cup of coffee at a coffee shop would cost.
Of course, you know, the day after a late game, you and I are talking about coffee. But let me tell you this.
We'll get to the game.
Hey, just bring it to this guy, man. Don't throw anything away. I'll drink whatever. Just bring it in.
You want me to bring it in?
Don't care.
Bring it in. I'll bring you a jar of coffee.
If you're going to throw it away,
I'm going to toss it.
Just bring it in.
Okay. I will bring you a bag of coffee that you can have. And if you like it, I'm happy for your family.
And you know what? If we don't, we'll just cut it with Folgers until it's gone.
Great.
We're not a wasteful
I appreciate
family,
that. But it's
Scott
$4 of beans. And I think of places where I get cheap and where I've tried to save money in my life and places where I don't think twice about it. And it's like, I won't think twice about the difference between something that costs $180 and $200. But I think 1,000 times over the difference between something that costs $4 and $6 because my brain is wired wrong. And I don't know why it's wired that way, but it's wired wrong.
I don't either, buddy. Yeah, that's life. Just throwing around $200 like it's willy-nilly.
No.
Like, hey,
no.
Make it rain.
No.
No?
I probably more regularly spend $4 and $6 than I do buying a $200 dresser. I told you we were redoing our closets.
Yeah.
You redid your closets and you peer pressured me into fixing my closets.
That's true.
So, but I didn't customize it. I just went and bought a dresser that fit in there, and I had picked one out that was like $180 at the Swedish store. And I was like, okay, this is good. I'm going to build it. It's going to ruin my weekend, but I'm going to build it anyways. And I went to the place where you have to go to get the actual boxes, and sure enough, the actual one I'd picked out was not there. They was out of stock. So there was one sitting right next to it. It was a similar size. It was $20 more. I said, fine, throw it in the box. Throw it in the bin, and I'll go buy it. And I did, and it was fine, but that's the $20 I won't flinch at. But the $4 to the $6 coffee, I get this like internal dread about spending the extra $2 on it at the grocery store, which is it's a huge difference. Obviously,
Can I tell you? My one and only experience with the Swedish furniture store that you're talking about? My wife did a year of law school in San Diego. And we moved her down there, and she was moving into an apartment. She did the whole "I'm taking nothing, I'll just buy it all when I get there."
Correct.
Right. That whole form of moving. And so we get there, and we go to that store. And hey, I'm not here to hate on anybody, but this is just my experience. We went there to this store, and it is totally designed opposite of what I want my shopping experience to be. Like, I want to get in. Get it and get out.
No, it's a maze.
And their whole thing, they're going to walk you through the entire store. They're very upfront about it. I did not know this concept when I got to this store. And I was like, wait a minute here. We got to walk through this entire thing? And so we did, and we did a bunch of stuff, and we write down numbers. I mean, it took so long. And then we get to the end of it, Ben. I was like, okay, where do we go to pick this stuff up? And she's like, well, we got to go back to the warehouse and fish it out of there. I was like, you have got to, what?
Yeah.
What?
It's an experience.
What?
It's unique if you've never done it before, which everyone's done it, but it's unique.
And then we got the pleasure of going home to set it up ourselves, too, which is always a great time. And I vowed at that point, I was like, you know what? It's not going to be my thing. This is not going to be me.
Certain point in your life, you can move past that.
That was my one and only experience with that particular store.
Yeah, and the store's fine, but it takes a certain approach.
Again, I'm not judging.
It takes
I'm not running anybody down.
Yeah.
They do lovely work, I'm sure. It's just not my. I just can't do it.
It's not how your mind works.
It's just not how I work.
Don't blame you. Should we talk about some Jazz basketball?
No,
Sorry, I derailed us talking coffee.
Now we're talking about stores and furniture.
I thought last night was fascinating.
Okay, it was. Let's tease this. We're going to play Quinn Snyder at 10:30 in his post game.
Megan, do you need me to send you that sound, or you got it?
We got it.
You're the boss.
So we're going to do that at 10:30, and we're going to kind of spend the rest of this segment telling you why we're going to play that sound.
Yeah.
So where would you like to start, Ben?
I will start with this. I'm stunned that the post game, which I would say was very demure, the Jazz were down. The Jazz were so down after that game. Quinn was down. Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson were down. Hassan Whiteside was extremely down.
Brutal.
Extremely down. I was shocked that after that game last night, playing the best team in the NBA in the Phoenix Suns, without your two best players, like at the end of this brutal streak, maybe Friday signals the end of this brutal streak. Tomorrow night when you play Memphis, who's a top 3 team on the road, maybe that signals the end of this brutal streak. I was surprised it took that loss last night for this team to match the feeling I had last Monday after they lost to the Lakers,
right,
where we came in on Tuesday and had this big conversation about how the team's not serious. I told you they need to make a trade. They've got to do all these improvements. It felt like it took them 9 more days to reach Ben's stage last
right
week.
There.
Which is nice because it gets easier.
It was a dark place
last week, but it felt like last night they reached their true low point, where I think I felt my lowest about this basketball team. Like my perspective of what they could be was last week because they had Donovan Mitchell and because they had Rudy Gobert. It felt like last night the losing finally caught up to them, regardless of the context around the month of January, which is basically they've been injury-riddled or saddled with coronavirus for the last 3 weeks. The lack of W's, which is kind of the immediate endorphin rush you get as a player, as a fan, finally caught up to the team. That was my feeling walking out of the arena last night at 12:30.
I think it was a particularly crushing loss because of the way that they lost it. And I think you'll hear this from Quinn Snyder because it's interesting. He snaps back. He was asked a question about Hassan Whiteside's foul,
very first
which
question.
was ridiculous. And he kind of snapped back at it, and he said, but the first quarter, we got smoked in the first quarter. He went right to that and then actually circled back around and answered the Hassan Whiteside part. And again, we'll play that for you coming up. But the way that they had fought back, that second quarter was incredible.
They held Phoenix to 11 points.
They were shorthanded without their two best players. Again, you'll hear this coming up, but Quinn Snyder was talking about how Mike Conley poured his guts out onto the floor. I mean, he was playing his heart out. He was waving on the crowd, which Mike Conley in particular never does. I mean, they wanted it badly. And then to lose the way that they did has got to be frustrating, right? And everybody's going to be upset at Hassan Whiteside for good reason, although he's going through some stuff too, so we could all approach things with a little bit more empathy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But the way that happened had to really sting. You know what I mean? It had to really hurt, and people had to be grumpy about it because it was right there. It's the best team in the league. You're shorthanded, and you had it, and you blew it.
My take last week was after Rudy Gobert, remember, had said, our perimeter defense is bad. Look at Devin Booker. He plays now. We don't play that way. And then they came out against Houston and didn't play a lick of defense again. And I thought, you can't tell me on Saturday you're going to fix the problem and you're no more my bads. There's no more time for it. And then Wednesday is all my bads. That's all it was. It did feel a lot like last night, what the team said. And again, we're going to let you hear Quinn Snyder talk about this exact stuff coming up in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He said, we went over the game plan. How close you have to be to Devin Booker. You can't let him get to the mid-range. You don't let him pull up for mid-range shots. There is a very specific game plan on how to guard Devin Booker. And for whatever reason, once the ball was tipped, the first 12 minutes of that game, when he went off for 21 first-quarter points, he was brilliant last night. Whoever's job it was, probably Jordan Clarkson, probably Royce O'Neal, went right out the window. It just went right. They totally ignored that they had talked about this, walked through it, practiced it. It was
played it on Monday.
Right. Gone. Gone. Zero carryover from practice to the first quarter. And then it snapped into the second quarter and they played much better. Devin Booker still had 22 points over the final three quarters, but he had 21 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
He absolutely lit up the Jazz. And clearly that finally reached a boiling point last night where Rudy Gay was exchanging words with Quinn Snyder at one point, walking off the floor, kind of yelling over players and coaches at each other. Quinn probably took, the longest I can remember in recent memory to come out after the game because he was talking to his team before coming out. Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson did their post-game conference together. Now, they do that sometimes because they've moved the rooms recently to try and get everyone in with COVID going on, but they did it. Hassan Whiteside was shook. He was absolutely shaken after the game. I asked him about the technical foul late, and he said, I've had a fever of 104 degrees. I've been in a basement for 10 days. I'm not in shape. I'm trying to get back with the team. My son has COVID right now. He ended his press conference on that. It was very understandably, Jake, I think you and I'd feel the same way. Everyone who has parents or has ever looked after anyone or is a parent and has kids or has ever looked after anyone understands it's vulnerable when the people you're supposed to take care of, you can't do it the right way, the way you want to. And that clearly affected him last night. So it was to me, it was a shocking post game compared to what I expected.
Absolutely. Shocking is a pretty good word for it. Although Hassan did have the line of the post game, I thought, well, that's arguable. Because Quinn Snyder had a good line too. Just because Donovan and Rudy aren't playing doesn't mean you can't run back on defense.
Unless they come back and don't run back.
Which was a really terrific line from him, even though he was obviously frustrated. But Hassan was talking about the foul itself. And listen, Hassan blasted that guy so hard that it knocked Bogdanovich off his feet, who was standing behind him.
Yes.
It was something. And Hassan said, he just got in front of me and fell down.
He did. It was Jalen Smith.
And then called it a BS call. Yes, thank you, Jalen Smith.
He said, I stand by it.
And his good-looking glasses. And absolutely, he's like, I stand by it. That was a BS call.
I will say this. Calling a technical foul in a 2-possession game with a minute left is bizarre.
Yeah.
But clearly the emotions were boiling over even on the floor, which is why Hassan did that.
Right.
Hassan shoved this guy because he was mad about something, which was kind of what I asked him about. I said, like, what led to that? Like, there is fouls, there's hard fouls. You know, they were frustrated with Bismack Biyombo all night because he was setting screens where he would bend over essentially to stick his butt out, so you had to go all the way around him. Like, it's a good screen. It's what Rudy Gobert does. But the Jazz were frustrated by that. Quinn Snyder was yelling at Eric Lewis, the official, at one point because he wanted Eric Lewis to come over and explain a foul call to him. And Quinn would go over across half court, which you're not supposed to do as a coach, to try and talk to him. And Eric Lewis would say, go get on your side of the floor, and then wouldn't go tell him what happened. So basically he put Quinn Snyder in timeout and said, I'm not going to talk to you. Quinn was furious about that. Mike Conley was furious about it. Jordan Clarkson was mad at different points. The emotions had boiled over. I wonder if it was because the game was on ESPN. It was nationally televised. I think that could have been part of it. But
they need a win. They want to win.
They need a win.
You said,
buddy, they need a win.
You said, I mean, going back to you talking about how they're feeling, how you felt last week.
Yeah.
You talked about, I think, going into the Denver game. No, maybe
Detroit,
the Houston game. But you talked about them playing with desperation. They need to be a desperate team. They're in desperate circumstances. You were probably right about it then, and you're certainly right about it now. So I think there's a bit of that. They're desperate for a win. They need it.
And I think the hard part was they were desperate last night, and they couldn't fix it.
They almost won.
Then they did, but it's hard to be desperate, feel like you played your heart out at least for 3 quarters, and then still not get the payoff. And that is sometimes just the timing of you're playing the best team in the NBA right now. Like, Phoenix is playing better than anybody. That's pretty clear they're playing better than anybody. You're shorthanded, and you played a team that is way better than you right now. Like, you don't get a win just because you play hard. You gotta be. You have to have the talent, and you have to play hard.
Well, you certainly have to be smarter than committing a foul like that in that circumstance where Mike Conley was fouled. He could have tied the game with foul shots.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
In that circumstance, time and score, right? Or I mean, in Joe Ingles' case a couple of weeks ago, know your roster.
Yes,
you've got 9 guys who can play. So you can't get thrown out at the beginning of the game. You know, you're Hassan Whiteside. You're aggravated, but you got to look at the scoreboard and go, time a score. I can go, blow off some steam after the game in the locker room in whatever way, shape, or form. But right now, I got to hold it together because the team's about to tie the darn game that we fought for a long time to get back into. Down 10 going into the fourth quarter.
But I do think that's what's frustrating is when you have games like this where you really can't control the outcome of this game. Like, you fought really hard. You erased a 21-point deficit. You gave yourself a puncher's chance to win that game. Like, yes, Hassan Whiteside shouldn't have committed 4 fouls in the fourth quarter. Yes, you can't get a technical foul there, etc. Like, I don't think the reason the Jazz lost that game was because of, as Quinn Snyder's going to say in 5 minutes here, because of how they played the last 3 quarters of the game. They lost it because they were down 21 and you're just fighting too long uphill. But when you lose control over the outcomes of certain games, it goes back and it hurts doubly worse that you've now lost 9 of 11 when your record shouldn't be this bad because you lost a game to Detroit when you were up 22 and absolutely could have controlled the outcome of that game. That's when these come back to bite you. When you were up 10 on the Lakers in the second half and you blew a lead there and lost by 2 in a game you shouldn't have lost. When you lost to the Houston Rockets, who are an awful basketball team, last week at home, and yes, you were shorthanded, but you had Rudy Gobert. You just didn't have Donovan Mitchell. You should have won that game. Last night is not what the Jazz, I don't think, are most angry about. It is the culmination and of the accumulation of losses over the last 3 weeks in games that they could have controlled, where even last night, yes, you always control the outcome of the game somewhat, but Phoenix is better than the Jazz right now. That's not a crazy thing to say. It's understandable why they lost that game. It's understandable why they lost at Golden State. It's understandable why they lost at Phoenix. But it really makes those other losses earlier in the streak, Houston, L.A., Detroit, you could even say Indiana, it makes them hurt so much worse.
All right, we'll get Coach Snyder's post-game comments coming up on the other side. And if you haven't heard these, stay tuned, because it was certainly unique in the tone and what he said, and maybe it is a good glimpse into what's going on right now with this Jazz team. Real quick, Ben, though, have you seen the picture that Justin Bean just tweeted out?
Did.
Like 15 minutes ago?
I did. From Utah State basketball.
Good heavens. And hey, big ups to the Aggies for smashing the Aztecs last night. But, wow.
Got a shiner.
He did, and it's swollen up to the size of, I don't know, what would you say there, Ben?
like half a golf ball, like a
half a golf ball,
like a thick cut of lemon.
Yeah, that's about right.
Looks like a good lemon wedge.
I don't think he could see out of that eye. And then Scotty compared him to Bob Costas, which is just hilarious.
It's a low blow.
The Olympics are coming up. Can you imagine your Bob at the time in his career where literally the only thing you're doing is working once every 2 years?
Don't get pink eye right Olympics. Now. Don't get pink eye.
The coverage. The last ailment you could ever want in that circumstance is the pink eye. And there's Bob. And did you watch it? Were you watching it? Because I couldn't help but rub my eyes.
Correct.
When the pink eye had gone from one eye to the other, I was just like, my eyes are itching just watching this. Somebody get Bob off television, please.
If you haven't seen the Justin Bean photo, you can find the Bob Costas photo just by Googling it. But if you haven't seen the Justin Bean photo, it's pretty shocking. Find Scotty on Twitter @ScottyG.
And I did not see it. I was doing the Jazz game last night, but apparently he said it was friendly fire going for a rebound. Yep. So, but that looks like it hurts. Put some ice on that, Justin. But good win for the Aggies. That's awesome. Stay tuned. We'll let you hear Coach Snyder's post-game comments coming up next. 97.5 and 1280 The Zone.
What time is it? It's 1:30 and time to talk Utah Jazz.
Oh, Donovan!
This is your Jazz at 30 update.
Ring the 30-point bell.
Jazz at 30 update. Jazz dropped another tough one to the Suns last night. Here is Jordan Clarkson talking about having a positive outlook even during a tough stretch.
Our team is really good. We're really talented. We just got to lock in and continue to get our guys back. We know what we have here. And we know we all out there going to compete and trying to win something. We lost these games. None of us really got our head down right now. It sucks. We frustrated. That's part of the game. But I think we still got one goal and one thing on our mind, and that's what it is. And we're going to win these games and keep competing and keep growing as a team.
This Jazz Update is brought to you by 5 Star Painting. Refresh the inside or outside of your home with a 5-star experience with 5 Star Painting. They've got the time, skills, and tools. 5starpainting.com. That's 5starpainting.com.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 1280 The Zone. Powered by KSLSports.com.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 and 1280 The Zone. Want to remind you that Valentine's Day is coming very soon. And the good folks at Jimmy's are there for you. Their staff can create something for you and get one of their ready-to-go arrangements for any budget. Jimmy's Flowers with stores in Bountiful, Layton, or Ogden, or online jimmysflowers.com. Get your order in early. That's jimmysflowers.com. All right, Ben, let's jump right into this post-game sound because I want to break it down with you afterwards because it was pretty interesting. Coach Snyder is usually pretty even-keeled. Sometimes he'll be a little more grumpy than others, but for the most part, he's fairly consistent. Just to set up the circumstance, Coach came out 15 minutes later
he's usually
than he
pretty
usually
prompt.
does.
He's usually pretty quick to get out there, and you're right. His highs aren't that high, his lows aren't that low.
He's consistent in that way. He's also fairly transparent. It's really fascinating to listen to him on a game-by-game basis, but it's usually pretty even. Yeah,
but last night he got particularly candid, I thought.
Yes.
Which is usually a sign of exhaustion. You're tired of saying the same thing to us, to your players over and over and seeing the same results.
So let's go ahead and give that a listen. We're going to do it in its entirety because it's really all good, but go ahead there, Megan.
What I saw was Booker had 21 first quarter points where we didn't run back with the level of commitment and intensity that it takes to win the game. We fouled and gave up 6 points. We gave up 3 on an offensive rebound, and we were down 20. To me, our ability to focus and prioritize those collective things that ultimately win and lose games. We can talk about a play,
how we executed something, how they executed something. We could talk about what a good player Devin Booker is, that Chris Paul is a clutch player. We could also talk about the fact that we were down 20 and just battled back. Mike Conley spilled his guts on the court. Like anybody that watched that game, if you watched every possession, the way he was getting bumped and held, knocked down, got back up, fought, competed. But we gave up, we gave a 20-point lead up in the first quarter because we weren't focused on the things that we need to be focused on to win. And then we do. So, this is a group and we have to find that. And then we can talk about, what's the question? Hassan's foul. There was a lot of fouls. Hassan's got to keep, he's got to keep self-control. And it's unfortunate. But we also had other situations throughout the course of the game. That's something that, us talking to the officials and pleading our case, we didn't do that when we were coming back. We played through contact. We adjusted to the way the game was going to be calling. And, anytime, there's mental errors in the game and guys have to keep their cool. I don't know what else to say about it. I have to watch the play, Tony.
Generally, teams have lost tonight, 11 or whatever it is, can go one of two directions. They can keep going down.
That's not even. Yeah, I mean, we're not going. We're going one direction. And it's not down. Like I can be angry and we can be disappointed, but we talked about it all. We can have it either way, whatever we want to focus on. The best record in the league, lost in the playoffs. 7th seed in the playoffs, winning the playoffs. I'll say it again. I want us to be the best version of ourselves at the end of the year. And who knows what's going to happen. We're playing without Rudy and Donovan right now. That doesn't mean we can't run back, unless Rudy and Donovan come back and don't run back, So I'm not, this isn't about winning and losing. This is about, committing to the things consistently that allow you to win. And I guess in that case, it is winning and losing. And you'll win. We had a chance to win tonight's game, even down 20. So, they're obviously, Booker had a really good night. We had, we weren't up enough in certain situations where he was able to get clean looks that weren't contested in the mid-range. And that's a game plan issue, but it's an execution issue, and we've got to clean that up. But I have confidence that we can do those things. But it's the same level of commitment and focus, and it's not. We're not. This isn't like Chicken Little. The sky is falling. Like I don't. You go through. Check our record when Rudy and Mike are playing. I don't think anybody can look at, and I don't even know what it is. I don't know. I know what month it is. I know we're playing Memphis and then Minnesota, and that's about it. And that's really all I care about. What we do next game, and I care that we compete because that's how we get better. And we didn't compete the first portion of the game, and then we competed like crazy. I mentioned Mike. We had guys that dug in. So, and both can be true at any given time. You just can't. You're going to have. It's a game of mistakes. There's going to be breakdowns, but it's what you do with them and how you respond to them. And we can't. We can't have stretches that that bury us like that early. And you're just not going to. You may come back and steal one, but that's not going to be, and that's not, to the extent that's something that we fought. I think we've made progress there. I think, but we need to make more.
Mentioned kind of some two defensive things there, running back, the level of the big, but what on the offense kind of went wrong because it wasn't like a great offensive spot.
Well, I hate to, Rudy's pretty good, and Donovan's pretty good. So, I don't know what we shot. I thought there were times, Andy, when we didn't take shots that we need to shoot, and the ball stops. And against a team that's as physical as they are, that takes your space, once you do that, unless you make a quick decision to pass it or drive it, the possession's going to die. You're going to be stuck on one side of the floor. And we know that it's not golf. Someone's not like knocking your ball out of the hole. You've got to react to what they're doing, and they're trying to not let you do something, and we're trying to do it. And if we don't, get those quick decisions against a team that has that type of length, Mikal Bridges, I don't know if you guys will vote. Is he first team all defense? Probably. But, so you got to shoot. And that's something, that we know as well. It's not always that easy. I could sit here and say it, but you got a 6'8" guy closing out on you like that. It's imperfect. But, I think when the ball stops because of some level of indecision, that really hurts us, would be the answer. When we were able to get out and push and play pick and roll and get the space we need, Mike got in the lane a lot, got knocked down a lot too.
I think the process is good. Process doing all the things.
We keep working. I'm not thinking of it. We'll think about the guys that are out there. And when those guys are back, not that you're not thinking about them, but it doesn't do us any good to lament that and say, okay, well, when we get healthy, when we get, that's part of an NBA season. And I'm not, however I sound, I'm not like, I would have liked to play better, but we've got a team that's capable, and I believe in them, which is part of the reason that, that there's frustration from all of us, that those things we can allow some of those things to happen. And, as I said, the best version of ourselves at the end of the year. It's not that the regular season doesn't matter, but these types of games, need to make us better. And it's really what you do with it, So what we do with this one is learn from it and, learn from the fact that we're down 20 and we battled back. I mean, you got to take the good with the bad, so it's not all bad. A lot of good. But the thing about, there's certain things you can control. Yeah. Those are that's where we want to put our focus, so anybody else?
This will seem more bipolar than I get, but do you feel like there's buy-in from everyone on the roster?
Yeah, we can go down that road, have I lost the team? Yeah. I mean, what is buy-in? There's total buy-in. These guys want to be good, and some of it is, there's an expectation when guys come back, that, you're just going to kind of keep doing what it's different here. So you got to work. But as far as buy-in goes, no, you just focus, putting importance on certain things. That's not necessarily buy-in. I don't think anybody will you'll go talk to those guys. We're on the same page, and you want to do it. And I mean, for that matter, those are things we've done, of late, and we've been down guys, I mean, you could write the story that Donovan and Rudy are at, that actually matters. But, it doesn't matter right now because we want to win. And there's things that we can do to win that we didn't do. We did them and then we did do them. So just do them more, keep working. Like I said, the sky's not falling, but that doesn't mean that we're accepting something either. I don't think that's. Am I making any sense? Okay.
There is Jazz head coach Quinn Snyder. His entire post-game media availability, Ben, and like we said going in, it was all really good, interesting stuff, and he had a different tone last night. I don't know. Where do you want to start with that?
Do you want to dissect it on the other side?
Yeah, let's do that.
We're going to have some tickets to give away today as well, by the way, Jake.
And we do have to dive into this Donovan stuff that's most recently circulating amongst the Twitter sphere. So we will get into all of it coming up. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben, 97.5 and 1280 The Zone. Jake and Ben, 97.5 and 1280 The Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Should we give away some tickets? Should we improve somebody's day?
Yeah.
Caller 12 right now, 855-340-ZONE. We've got a pair of tickets for you to go to the Jazz and the Nuggets on February 2nd. Be caller 12. And you and a friend, loved one, child, spouse.
Whatever you want.
Going to the
stranger.
855-340-ZONE.
Pick up a rando. Take him to the Jazz game. Make a friend.
Do you do that a lot?
It's 2022. No, I'm done with randos.
You've had your fill? I can't. I don't know if that's your thing. If you want to pick up a random stranger,
pick me up. I'll be your rando.
The game,
I'll be the random person. Come take me.
That is
enjoyable.
Your prerogative. Ben, listening to that post-game press conference was actually helpful for me to hear that again.
Yep.
And that was a coach who's frustrated that he's not being listened to.
100%. He's telling his team. He said it's a game plan issue and it's an execution issue. Quinn Snyder's not forgetting to tell them to guard Devin Booker, where to pick him up. Quinn Snyder's one of the most detail-oriented coaches in the NBA. Probably painfully so to some of his players, but it's not like they're leaving that leaf unturned. He's telling them exactly what he feels like they need to do against Devin Booker, and then he's not seeing the execution on the floor, which I'm sure is part of his causing the frustration. Now, he doesn't throw guys under the bus, and he wasn't doing that. He doesn't pick out any player specifically, but he's saying they need to listen if they want to have the success that they talk about wanting to have. If they're serious about it, they've got to do the things he asks, and it doesn't seem like they are. Now, that might come down to a talent issue. If I ask Shaq to start hitting threes and he can't hit threes, that's a me problem. So you might just not have the pieces to guard Devin Booker the way you want to guard Devin Booker, even if you're telling him how to do it.
Well, I know people have been kind of making fun of this online a little bit, but it's really true. The Jazz always, the players, that is, always say the right things after the game. We know what we need to do. We just need to do it. Focus. How many times have I heard the word focus in the last month? It's,
So we have our little translation program that I record the Jazz postgame things in, and it kind of gives me a loose translation of what the players have said. If I were to just search in that, lock in, we just need to lock in. It's been 100 times. It's falling on deaf ears at this point. It's falling on deaf ears. It's just got to show up or it's not going to.
Again, we've talked about this before, but Coach Lacombe talks about how Rick Majerus didn't like the whole "my bad" thing.
Correct.
Because, we saw you throw that pass into the third row. We know it's your bad.
Yeah.
Stop saying my bad.
Notoriously didn't love a help defender. Yeah. Why do you need help?
But it's true. At some point, you can't say my bad anymore.
Yeah.
And it's either do it or don't. They obviously think they're capable of it. The players aren't going to come out and say, you know what, that Ben Anderson's right. This is a flawed team. One of us has got to go. You're never going to hear that. But They know what the problem is.
Sure.
Now, what the solution is a different question, and that's where we're getting into where you're at there. But you're not going to hear that from Coach or any of the players.
No, he's not going to say we need to make a trade to get better defensive players. Now, I do happen to think that is one of the major problems. The Jazz don't have talented enough defensive players on the perimeter like a Mikal Bridges. And look, you can't just go trade for Mikal Bridges. They hit a home run on a draft pick. The Phoenix Suns did. They got a guy on draft night in a trade with Philadelphia who's a star, who's an all-defensive first-team member. That's going to really benefit them. Chris Paul is an immaculate, incredible defensive player. That helps. You get guys who buy in and play the right way. It's really going to make you a better team, and that's one of the things that the Suns have done so well, and it's why they're a true championship contender and made the finals last year. But my question and what I'm curious about with the Jazz is, I asked Quinn Snyder, there's one of two directions the teams go when you've lost 2 of 9. You either you're always frustrated. What do you do with that frustration? Do you bounce back? Do you answer the bell? Do you come back and fight and improve and learn from your mistakes and learn from the adversity? Or do you not, and you just continue to squander this opportunity that the Jazz have with all this talent on their team? And he cut me off, and that was the second question he answered. And he said, we're going one direction, and it's not down. Like, he's convinced. Jordan Clarkson last week did kind of the infamous, like, moving his hands up and down, saying, like, everyone's up and down about this team, and we're chill. Like, the team continues to say, everyone's bought in, everyone's going in the right direction, they're going to answer this adversity, they're going to learn from these issues, and they're going to fix it on the court. Of course, what else are they going to say? But now we've heard that argument, we've heard that side of it. The question does actually become, when you get Donovan back, which I suspect will be tomorrow night, and if not, it'll probably be Sunday night when you're playing against the Minnesota Timberwolves, but they want to have him back in the next couple of days. Whenever you get Rudy Gobert back, whether that's, this weekend, next week, whatever, before the All-Star break, however you do it, are you actually going to see the Jazz learn the lessons from this adversity they're having to face right now? Are they going to be sharper? Are they going to be playing better because of these issues that they're facing?
Well, Quinn Snyder is tired of talking about it.
100%.
He's tired of selling that message because it's either falling on deaf ears or being ignored or whatever. And your example with Devin Booker in his first quarter, which obviously irritated Coach, because they game planned right and they knew what to do, and to take away his right hand, make him go left, and they didn't do it, which is, well, maybe we've all been there in some way, shape, or form where we know what we got to do and we just don't do it.
But like if Scott Gerard, my boss, comes to me and says, Ben, I need you to make sure you tweet out before every show that the Jake and Ben show starts at 10 o'clock. That's your job. Your job is to tweet out every day at 10 o'clock, Jake and Ben show starting right now. Here's what we're talking about in the first segment. And he asks me every day to do it 5 minutes before the show, and I neglect to do it over and over. There's a problem. There's a disconnect there. Either I won't do it, and there's a problem because I'm not listening to Scotty, or I can't do it for whatever reason, and you've got to figure out what the problem is. Are they choosing not to do it, or are they incapable of doing it? And I do think that is the hard part about where you are right now with 2 weeks to the trade deadline today, 2 weeks to the trade deadline today. You've got to figure out which one it is.
Well, they are capable of doing it because the Suns scored 11 points in the second quarter. So
100%. But, and here's the thing, and this I didn't feel bad about saying this because it's an opinion I have, but it felt highly critical at a time when maybe there wasn't enough data or evidence to say that this was true. But I've said this about the Jazz. Nobody loves easy better than the Utah Jazz. Yeah. They love it when it's easy. They love it when the shots are falling. They love it when the opposing team gives up. They love an easy game. They look great. They play loose. They play incredibly well. They're having fun. They're throwing lobs. They're dunking on people. They're running up and down the floor. When it's easy, they look great. There has not been a lot that has looked like they have the toughness or whatever, the fight in them to combat things when they're difficult right now. Because even Mike Conley said last night, and I gave them an out in a question. I asked a bad question last night to Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson. I said, it's obvious why you're losing games. You guys have had a different starting lineup every night over the last 3 weeks. And he cut me off and he said, we won games last year without these players. They won games over the last 16 games of the season when they didn't have Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley on the floor. They still found ways to win games last year and protect the number 1 seed. And they're not even winning those games right now. So they don't think it's the players on the floor. That they are obviously frustrated that they are not answering the bell the way that they've said they're committed to doing.
You got cut off a few times last night.
They're frustrated. They're mad. Maybe I'm asking long-winded questions.
Maybe it's personal.
Maybe I'm just asking. Maybe I'm bad at my job.
I don't think that's it.
Phoenix Suns fans think I'm bad at my job.
Well,
it's a different animal.
I tell you, it's a really bright fan base. Those Suns fans.
Tough, but regardless, there's a lot of soul searching going on with this Utah Jazz team. The problem is, when you soul search for 20 games, you have to find something. If you're not finding anything, then there's nothing there to find. If you're continuing to soul search about how to play defense, about whether or not you're going to buy in, because you're right, they can do it. They can hold a team to 11 points in a quarter.
Pretty amazing.
But if you don't do it every night, who cares? If you don't do it every quarter, who cares? If you're going to go down 20 before you start playing hard, who cares that you can do it?
So Remember when Darren Williams yelled at Zippy, "Are you the new Zippy?"
No, they're nice to me. Maybe they're just too nice. Maybe. They're just nice to me.
Well, Darren was nice to Zippy until he walked away.
Yeah. Maybe. Maybe I'm.
You know how many times we played that clip? That was one of the funnier things I think I've seen in my time covering the Jazz. Darren just forgot, like, oh, yeah, I'm in front of people here. I just talked about hating that TV guy over there.
No, I think...
no, I don't think you're that.
I've got enough equity.
I'm making a joke.
I'm not around enough anymore because I'm doing the show.
There are reports out there about one Donovan Mitchell. We'll talk about that coming up next. Stay tuned.
Oh, good news today, Jazz
Jake
fans.
and Ben, really uplifter today on the Jake and Ben Show. 97.5 and 1280 The Zone.